Hi, and welcome to the Vaadin Maven integration webinar. I'm Jens.
And I'm Henry.
Today we're going to introduce you to the Maven integration that we have built around the Vaadin framework and introduce you as well to the main archetypes that you can use to build your applications. A great place to start for learning about Maven integration is the Maven dedicated page that we have built under vaadin.com/Maven. Here you can see, first off, there is a code snippet. If you're in a hurry and just want to get the application going, you can copy paste that into your terminal and you will directly have a project to start with. Going a little bit down the list, we'll see a list of Maven commands that you can use while building your application. We will go through these with examples in a short while. Going back to the top and changing the second tab, we see a list of the archetypes that are in use. We will go through the three first ones during this webinar, starting from the simplest one and going to the most complex one. We go through application, multi-module, and application example. And then on the last tab, we have a list of all the dependencies that we have for Vaadin and their description. So if for some reason you have to go to modify your project later on, you can check this list on what everything does and tweak it to your preference. Alright, but let's jump into code directly and generate a project for us.
Okay, so first simple project I will generate on the command line. So I will just copy this snippet. I could also just type Maven archetype generate and then pick the rest of the parameters from a list, but we'll get started with a few less steps now. Just copying this, so I need to give my project a group ID, an artifact ID, and the rest of the parameters. I'll just accept the defaults. So now we have an app test project with a README file. We'll take a look at it in a minute, but I will just quickly show how to get this compiled and then run. So we can perform Maven install and then jetty run to actually start the server. This will compile the widget set for the project, so even the simple archetype has a custom widget set, but you can get rid of that if you want to do purely server-side.
Yeah, so the first time you start up the application, it takes a little bit longer, 30 seconds to 1 minute, and after this it will be just a couple of seconds. So waiting for it to compile finished, we can then directly go into the browser and start up at localhost 8080 and thus get our main Hello World Vaadin application.
Yes, so the widget set is compiled, the server is starting, and
yeah, it's running
we
now.
Can go and load this. And we have a very trivial application running. What I could do next is import that into Eclipse, so I'll just pick import Maven, existing Maven projects. Pick a directory where I created the project and finish. So if we look a little bit at the structure of the project, so we have the README file that has instructions for what we already did, as well as further instructions on what to do.
Yeah, so there's all the commands that you might need at some point. So if you forget any command, open up the README file and you can see them there. It's also meant that this is the stub for your project. You should update the README file to include the information relevant to your project directly. Next up, we could go into look what else the archetype generated. So the interesting part is the UI class, which is the entry point for your application. As you saw, it was a very simple application. It just adds a button, and when you click on the button, it adds a label to the layout. That's all to it. Next up, we'll go in. Yeah, okay, we have the servlet configured also here in the UI class.
You could do it also in a web.xml file, but this project we chose to do it all with servlet-free annotations in the here.
Yeah. And next up, we have the widgetset.xml file. So this is for adding custom client-side code to your application, like downloading an add-on from the directory. You don't have to touch this usually. It's just enough that it's there, and you just add the dependency of your add-on, and it will understand to recompile it.
So when you update the dependency in the POM, the client-side widget will automatically come up here.
Yeah. Then next part that it generates is the theme for your project.
And that we can find under deployed resources. So source, web app, Vaadin, my theme. And the file that you are interested in is mytheme.scss, which has some commented out variables for customizing the Valo theme. You can very quickly modify the theme to your liking with these, and then a point where to insert your custom CSS rules.
Yeah. And the last up, the file that is in every Maven project, the POM XML file.
So in the project object model, what we have interesting is the Vaadin version variable. So you can very quickly select the Vaadin version to use. This affects all the dependencies, all Vaadin dependencies. The project has already the push dependency included, even though in the test project is not in use. And what we can do is add a dependency here. What I could quickly show is how to add a Vaadin add-on to the project. So let's go to the directory, vaadin.com/directory, and search, for instance, for the switch component, a very simple UI component. And here we have the Maven dependency for it. We can also just copy this to the POM. Underneath there's the repository section, but that's already configured in all the archetypes. So no need to add that. I'll just paste this here under dependencies. Save. And now, actually I still have the server running. I need to stop that.
Yep.
So I will rerun Maven install, this time from Eclipse. So run as Maven install. It'll recompile the widget set, including this widget, so we can see that the widget set file was automatically updated. And once this is ready, well, what we do need to do is add this component to the UI as well. So I'll just add a new instance of it while the widget set is compiling. A new switch. So this is server-side code, so it doesn't affect the widget set. And now if I run the project, run as maven build ... and jetty run, so exactly the same target as we have used previously. It will start up the server, and what we can do is go here, reload, and we have the switch there.
There we have it. Yeah, it's visible.
Now, what I notice is that we forgot to add spacing to the layout, so it doesn't look very nice. So what we can do is just go modify the server-side class, set spacing true, save this, and the jetty that is configured in this Maven project is configured to reload changes So whenever I save something,
Yeah.
I can just reload the UI.
There's the spacing. And yeah, we have configured in the POM XML file that Jetty should be available. That is why you can use Maven Jetty Run to start your application. You can of course use any servlet container that you want to use. You just switch out it to Tomcat or Wildfly or whatever. But this is a convenient starting point that you just get things running very fast.
And you can either use the servlet container by adding the appropriate Maven plugin and running it within Maven, or you can just use Eclipse server adapters or run Maven package to produce the var file to deploy wherever you want.
Yeah. And this is basically our most simple archetype, the application archetype. I use this quite a lot. I have always a couple of tens of these on my computer every time I want to test something. This is a very fast starting point, as you just write Maven archetype generate, and then you have a project up and running that you can test stuff in. Then we will go over to the following archetype on the list. That was the application multi-module. It's the same content, but it's split into multiple modules in it.
So this time I'll use the new Maven project wizard in Eclipse. I could use any IDE. Just look for Vaadin archetypes and pick the multi-module archetype. And I'll need to give it an artifact ID. There's some default values for the rest of the parameters, but you can customize everything there. Finish. And this time we get 4 projects. So we get the multi-project, which is the root project, and then 3 sub-projects inside it. And again, in the root there's a README file.
Yeah. Let's run install again, and then we can discuss a little bit more about these modules.
Yes. So I start on the top level project Maven install, and that will automatically compile all the sub-projects.
Yeah. The one that is maybe most interesting in this one is the UI module. It is where all the UI code lives in, so you will do most of your work within this module. It has the UI class in it, and it has the theme in it. Follow up on the list, we have the widgetset project. That is basically the XML file split separately from the rest of the UI code.
Yes, so this allows us to compile the widgetset separate from the rest of the development workflow. So most of the time you would work on the UI project typically, or on some add-on additional modules like a backend module, whatever your application has. And you don't want the overhead of recompiling the widgetset every time.
Yeah, so we have done integration into the install process where it tries to figure out if you have done some client-side changes in your project, and it would require a recompilation of the widgetset. In the most basic archetype, it is done by looking at changes into the POM XML file. It can be an add-on, or it can be anything on the server side as well that you have added there, and thus it might sometimes install it too eagerly. But here, when we have split it out in a different module, you add the add-on dependencies only to the widgetset project, and it won't be as eager on the recompilation. Mm-hmm. And the last module that we have is the production module.
So this is a bit different. So in the basic archetype, the widget that it produces, for instance, is obfuscated, but it still has some development modes which is available. Here in this multi-module project, the UI and the widget module are really configured for development time. So what you have there is a widget set that is compiled in a much larger, pretty easy to debug format that is compiled with less optimizations to be a bit quicker. For the UI, the debug option is available. The themes are compiled on the fly when you load the application. There is some caching, of course, and so on. So So what we have is a production module that permits you to easily produce a VAR that you can just deploy on your production server that has a tightly optimized, obfuscated widget set that has all the other production mode options active and a precompiled theme. And to speed up the workflow, this module is not compiled by default when you do Maven install on the top level. So as mentioned in the README as well, to produce it you need to use a production profile. So what we can do is just quickly show how to get that built. We just do maven build install, and this time we select the production profile. Run this, and it will take slightly longer than the widget that compilation normally takes in the development mode.
Yeah, and you get the VAR file from there, which you can just put into your production server directly, and you have the choice always to get the working VAR the VAR that you work on, or the production VAR with this setup. The UI code in this project is exactly the same as in the previous project, that you have the same click me and adding labels to the layout.
So there's effectively one class to modify or delete if you don't want to start from this.
Yep.
Then, well,
yeah, there it finished compiling, and
yeah.
There's the production VAR is available now under the production module in the target folder. There.
Here we have it.
Yeah, this is a good choice for you if you prefer to have code separated into smaller modules, or are prepared to put in, for example, a backend module into your project and don't want to have directly UI code and backend code in the same project, but an API between those two. Next up, we'll take the last of the three archetypes that we go through in detail, and that's the example archetype. It builds up directly on this multi-module archetype that we did, but it includes a lot of example UI code within it as well.
Yes. So again, we look for Vaadin archetypes and pick the application example. Need to give it an artifact ID, and that's it. And now we have 5 projects instead of the 4. So we have a dummy backend module as well. The contents of that you will probably want to replace in a real application.
Yeah, but it does show a good way on how to handle it, that it has a separate service and it has its own entities. It's just now stored in the memory, so if you restart the server you will lose it. But you could switch that out to a real database as well, so you have that interface there.
Okay. Again, we have the README, which describes the modules, which describes how to use it, so I'll start Maven install in the background. For the top level project, it will take a little over 30 seconds again. And in the meanwhile, maybe we could take a quick look at the UI module. So this time there's quite a lot more in there. There's a UI class that does very trivial login. There is a main screen class which handles the top level navigation. An about view, some basic access control. Okay. So we seem to have
a little bit technical problems, but let's restart up Luna there. So the things that you get out of this, if you just look from the UI level, is that you first off you have your login screen. It does some authorization code already. You can log in as admin or as another user, and it does a little bit different the layout or the content of the application. Next up, you get the menu of the application. So you get the easy point how to build your views and how to add them to the view itself, to the menu itself. Then it includes an example for a CRUD view, which many applications contain. This example that we have used here is a book inventory. So you have a list of books and then how many you have in stock of every one, and you can go and edit it how you like. And then it has the backend that we talked a bit already.
We seem to have a bit of a problem starting up Eclipse.
Well, should we start up?
Okay, here it came.
Yeah, great. So let's start it up.
Let's start this one up. So again, it's the UI module where I want to run Jetty. And I hope the compilation finished before we started with this. So now if we go to the server on localhost, what we get is a bigger application.
Yeah. So here you see the login screen, and everything in this application is built as responsive. So you got the desktop view now, but if you minimize it, it goes over to the mobile version of the application or the tablet version in between. It has 3 different states.
So if we log in, the same thing, we have a book inventory, we have various views in this, 2 views to start with.
Yeah, you can notice also that the URL changes based on which view you are in, so all the views are bookmarkable that way. And yeah, there's the listing of the books, and if you click on one, you will also get the editor up for it, so you can modify the inventory. This is quite basic on many business applications that are built.
Yes. So what we could do is take a look at how to get started actually extending this. Maybe we want to add another view to this application.
Yeah. So let's just take, for example, the about view that we had. It was very simple. Let's take that and copy paste it into a new view.
My view.
Like that. Then we can just remove the old content for it and do our own content inside it.
So I'll just add a single label in it, just so that we can see where we are.
And these views have, every view has a static string in it, which is just a convention where you specify what it should say, what the name of the view is.
Mm-hmm.
Then we go into the UI class, the main screen class of the application and add it to the navigator and menu.
So this is where all the views are registered, so I'll just copy the line for about view and update it for my view. Maybe I'll make this a bit bigger. And I'll give it another icon. Let's take the anchor icon. I seem to have to redo my imports, and now the Jetty automatically reloads the changes that we made. So we can just reload the application here, log in again, and here we have my view.
Great. Next thing we could look up is the theme of this application. So it has been built in a way that you can easily modify some parameters and it will have an effect on many places in the application. You can of course also add your directly custom CSS and do whatever you want, but it has many handy key points there to use.
So what we could do is, for instance, change this editor background color. Let's just pick a color 227, and in the development mode, the theme is recompiled on the fly. So if I just reload the page, I get this purplish background for the menu and for the editor. And you can see that the color is used to calculate the colors of other elements, like the background of this combo box.
Yeah, exactly. And last feature we're going to look into here is how you can debug the client-side code in your application by using SuperDev mode.
So in the widgetset module, you can, in addition to having add-ons referenced, you can also directly have client-side code. And we have two little extensions in this application. One is this, in the search field, we have this clear button, which is a very simple client-side extension.
Yeah, it's a normal text field that the feature has been added on with the extension.
So that's implemented by this class. And here is where we actually do the clearing. What I could do, this is again described in the README. I can start the client-side debugging server, the SuperDev mode server. So Maven build, it is Vaadin :run -code server. Just check it from the README if you don't remember. Run this, it will do a very quick draft recompilation of the widget set. And then in the application, we want to make it connect to this development mode server. So what we can do, we could either directly add the SuperDev mode parameter here, but let's say we don't remember it, so we can just open the debug view. Okay, minimized here, and under the cog there's a button for SuperDev mode.
Yeah.
So when we reload the client side, there's again a very quick recompilation of the widget set. As you could see, it only took a moment. Now, if using a browser that supports source maps properly, like Chrome, we can do debugging directly viewing the Java code in the browser. But another feature that this will also provide is very quick changes, taking into account changes in here very quickly. So what we can do is, let's say we want to change the text to Vaadin when we clear the text, clear the field. We reload the page, type something, and then click reset, and we have Vaadin as the search string.
Great. And this was the example archetype. So let's go through them again. We had a simple application, then application multi-module, and application example. Depending on your needs, you can choose one of these three as your starting point. If you're just wanting some quick to test something out, the application one is great. You get started very, very fast. If for some reason you want to split the code into smaller pieces, or you know that you will have a backend module that you have to hook up into your Vaadin application, you can use the multi-module version. And if you just want an ready-made UI to start with, or want to see how you could do different things, take the example one as a base for your application. Going back to the list on the Maven page, there's three other archetypes that we didn't show here, but we can talk about them quickly. The first one on the list is the widget archetype. This is basically meant for when you want to build an add-on for Vaadin and package it separately from your project. This is a multi-module project as well. It includes two modules. It includes the widget itself in one module, and then it has a second one, which is the demo module. The separation is so that you can have a demo application where you test it, which is independent, but so that that code doesn't go into your application as well when you take into use the widget. And the widget module itself, it includes everything that you need if you would like to put it up on our Vaadin directory page.
Yeah, so if you make a better switch than the switch, you can publish it there.
Yeah.
Next up, we have the TouchKit archetype, which is for developing mobile applications mostly. So TouchKit is a commercial add-on to Vaadin, which provides some additional components, some additional features, easier offline support, for instance, for mobile applications. And this archetype is a quick way to get started with it. So what you can do is, again, create a project with it and then follow the instructions. What you will need to do is get a license for TouchKit. So either get a license, an evaluation license from the website, or get a permanent license. And finally, we have the Liferay portlet archetype. So if you are developing for the Liferay portal, this is a quick way to get started. It is structured the way other Liferay portlet archetypes are in general structured. So that means that it requires some configuration. But on the Liferay website, you can find the instructions on how to set up your Liferay, how to set up everything for developing portlets with Maven.
Great. Also, we are developing further our integration all the time. We have actually 2 different tracks going on right now. The first one being the Eclipse plugin that we have, and getting Maven support directly into our own Eclipse plugin.
So as you could see, what we did here in Eclipse was run Maven goals through the menu. We did run as whatever Maven goals. So some of these, like explicitly compiling the widget set and so on, we have available or also through the toolbar in the old Eclipse plugin, and those actions will in the future connect directly to Eclipse, directly to Maven, so they will just run the appropriate Maven goals.
Yeah.
Likewise, we will have a new project wizard, for instance, using Maven behind the scenes, but providing a quick selection of the Vaadin archetypes, of the relevant parameters for them, similar features to get started quickly with Eclipse, make the Eclipse workflow as smooth as possible.
Yeah, so today the default is that it creates an Ivy project when you put a new project, and that will in the future be a Maven project when you create something new. But the Eclipse plugin will support the Ivy projects in the future as well. Mm-hmm. The second track that we are working on is a couple of more archetypes. It's to get started with Java EE integration and Spring integration.
So we have started working on a Spring archetype that is effectively based on the example archetype we just saw here, but that uses Spring behind the scenes for injecting dependencies, for configuring the views, so you don't need to register those explicitly, for starting the UI. So you would just annotate your UI with that Spring UI and so on. This relies on the Vaadin Spring add-on that is going to be released very soon now. The current plan is in April, along with Vaadin Spring Boot add-on.
Okay, that was it what we wanted to show you about the Maven integration today. Additionally, we have got some questions in here submitted to us.
So let's start with Roberto asked us first that it would be helpful to update some of the versions of the plugins we use in the Maven archetypes, so that I already created a ticket for that. So for instance, updating the Maven compiler version there. And well, Roberto also mentioned the use of the Maven Eclipse plugin. A Maven plugin that generates Eclipse configurations, Eclipse project files. So it's of course possible to use it. Personally, what I do is prefer using as native Maven projects as possible when using Maven. So rather than generating the project files with that add-on, I'll just import the projects with M2E, Maven Eclipse integration, or with whichever IDE I'm using. Yes, I believe that's it for that.
Then we also had a question from Christian. The question is how to use a Vaadin archetype to be included on a EAR project.
So here there is effectively nothing special about Vaadin. So what you can do is just, as you would usually do in a web project which has an EAR, or an EAR project which has a VAR, create another module in your project. So here, alongside with the backend and the UI, I would create an EAR project.
Yep.
And I would then just, well, you can look it up, even just Googling for Maven EAR var.
Yeah, so basically you put the packaging type to EAR there. The Vaadin ones have var. Then you bring in the Vaadin project as a dependency to this module, and finally you configure the Maven EAR plugin to include that dependency in the final EAR that it will create.
One thing that might be worth noting is something that isn't specific to Vaadin, but when you are using EARs, you might well be using CDI, so you should note that there is a single common context for the whole EAR, so you can't have separate contexts for each var in it, for instance, and separate jars.
Yeah. All right, that's it. Thank you for listening in. Henry and me will be following on the thread on our forum on vaadin.com/forum. So if you have any questions, go in there and ask them, and we'll try to answer them as soon as possible. Thanks for listening. Bye.